They began at sea, a dense choreography of ships and aircraft, drills timed and repeated, each evolution designed to test communications, weapon systems, and the harder two. Measure capacity of allied forces to operate together in contested waters over several days in gray skies and steady wind. A multinational maritime exercise in the West Philippine Sea unfolded as both a demonstration of capability and a deliberate show.
Of resolve, amphibious and surface ships, patrol aircraft, and helicopters moved through rehearsed patterns, coordinated maneuvering, live fire drills, anti-submarine work, search and rescue scenarios, and the delicate seamanship of underway replenishment that keeps task groups at sea. The United States deployed an amphibious ship, and the U.S. Coast Guard sent a cutter.
Japan contributed vessels with at least one of its landing ships joining the group. Australia and Canada added ships to the task group. The Philippines put several of its most modern warships to sea, Brooke Miguel Malvar, Brooke Antonio Luna, Brooke Tarlac, and Brooke Cape San Agustin, and their crews took part in the full roster of operations. Together, these forces ran a packed syllabus meant to sharpen the skills sailors, aviators, and mariners will need should a real crisis arise. Live fire drills were an unmistakable centerpiece. Crews practiced engaging short-range air and surface threats, testing tracking systems, and rehearsing the rapid transition from detection to engagement. One highlight was a close-in weapons demonstration aboard Brooke Miguel Malvar, a rapid-fire defensive gun system used to defeat nearby threats such as drones or incoming missiles. That demonstration underscored a simple operational truth. When modern sensors and weapon systems are networked and rehearsed, the margin for surprise shrinks. Anti-submarine warfare training was another major focus. Teams deployed sonar arrays, practiced depth charge and torpedo drills, and worked through scenarios meant to replicate the complexities of hunting a quiet adversary in a busy maritime environment. Surface ships and maritime patrol aircraft work together to detect, classify, and track potential underwater contacts, the slow, patient business of narrowing a contact box in. Crowded seas. At the same time, search and rescue exercises put a human face on readiness, recovering survivors from simulated incidents, coordinating helicopters and small boats, and synchronizing medical evacuation procedures under pressure. Sustainment was practiced too. Crews ran underway replenishments, the precise transfer of fuel and supplies between ships while steaming side by side, an evolution that extends operational reach and keeps forces at sea longer without returning to port. The maritime component closed with cooperative activities intended to knit the participating navies more tightly together, communications drills, combined planning sessions, and a final refueling at sea that validated the task group's stamina and interoperability. Philippine officials reported the maritime component finished ahead of schedule and that all exercise objectives were met. Not far from the drill area, however, others were watching. Naval authorities reported monitoring the presence of vessels and aircraft belonging to the People's Liberation Army Navy. In an on-the-record update, they said, for the duration of this activity, we detected so far 4 Plow Navy warships around the vicinity of the exercise starting from our day one at sea on the 24th of April until today. They also tracked 3 aircraft, 2 maritime patrol fixed-wing craft, an unmanned system observed above 20,000 feet, and a helicopter operating from one of those warships. Official statements stressed the professional nature of those encounters. A naval spokesperson described the behavior they observed in direct terms, generally okay behavior. No confrontation, no radio challenges. They're just here monitoring our activity. In other words, close observation without aggressive interference. For sailors operating in the area, that distinction between monitoring and harassment is not academic. It can mean the difference between a tense but safe exercise and a dangerous provocation. The watchful presence of other powers is part of the message these drills also send. Actions are observed, interpreted, and sometimes contested. That is the strategic subtext beneath the tactical rehearsal. This maritime engagement was part of a larger series of drills, the annual Balakatan exercises, the long-standing joint training between the Philippines and its partners. This year's iteration was described by officials as the largest to date, involving thousands of personnel across land, air, and sea, and a variety of scenarios meant to test combined readiness across multiple domains. The message Balakatan aims to deliver is twofold: reassure partners and domestic audiences about collective defensive capability and deter actions that could unsettle maritime stability in the region. Across oceans and into different theaters, other shifts of consequence were underway. One of the more intriguing developments on the global stage centered on a decision by the United Arab Emirates to leave OPEC, a change scheduled to take effect on the 1st of May. Analysts framed that choice not only as an economic step, but as a geopolitical signal. One observer described the move as pointing to a fracturing within the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries and suggested the shift could ultimately benefit leaders who have criticized the cartel for manipulating prices. Put plainly, the change in status was read as a sign of broader geopolitical realignment, a falling out among producers whose loyalties and calculations can ripple through global supply, pricing, and strategic calculations on both sides of the Atlantic. Diplomacy, too, played out on a ceremonial stage in Washington. In a rare address to the United States Congress, Britain's monarch spoke to lawmakers, using the moment to affirm the long-standing ties between the United Kingdom and the United States. He characterized that relationship as part of what Henry Kissinger once described as a Kennedy-era vision of an Atlantic partnership built on transatlantic pillars. The speech was a public reassurance at a time when diplomatic strain has surfaced elsewhere. Britain's prime minister had recently distanced his government from American military actions in Iran, drawing public criticism from Washington. Still, statecraft left room for ceremonial hospitality. Visiting royals were hosted at a White House state dinner where leaders exchanged formalities, even as disagreements over policy were highlighted by public remarks. The president used the occasion to assert that the king agreed on limits regarding Iran's nuclear ambitions. The king did not publicly comment on that particular remark. The moment underscored how ceremony and substance coexist in diplomacy, how institutional ties are reaffirmed even amid policy differences. Back in Washington, a high-profile legal story dominated headlines. Former FBI Director James Comey was indicted in a criminal case brought by the Justice Department, an extraordinary development in American public life. The charges stemmed from a contested social media post, an image later deleted that some interpreted as a coded message. The post's arrangement displayed a sequence of numbers and imagery that stirred fierce debate. Supporters of the prosecution argued the post amounted to a threat aimed at the president. Critics said the case was politically motivated. Comey responded with defiant language and a public defense of his actions and of the justice system. He said, "I'm still innocent, I'm still not afraid, and I still believe in the independent federal judiciary." His statement and the case itself became another touch point in a broader national conversation about institutions, accountability, and political polarization. Markets and corporate earnings provided another layer of the week's story, and in the Philippines, the picture was mixed. Equity markets found a brief respite after a multi-day slide as investors repositioned themselves ahead of a major U.S. Federal Reserve policy decision. The peso, however, came under pressure and slipped to fresh lows, a point of concern for importers and policymakers. Corporate reporting was a patchwork of resilience and strain. One of the country's largest listed conglomerates reported a solid first quarter, with net income rising year on year and consolidated revenues holding steady. Utilities and infrastructure companies offered brighter spots. A major utility saw first quarter profit growth driven by higher build volume and an expanding customer base, while power units and other conglomerates accounted for a sizable share of corporate earnings, in some cases reporting double-digit jumps in quarterly profit. Regulators also moved forward with capital markets activity. The securities regulator approved a preferred share offering for a development firm seeking to raise funds and granted shelf registration that will allow the company to tap public markets as needed. On the energy transition front, a renewable energy company announced a partnership with a major payments platform and a provincial government to launch a province-led rooftop solar campaign. The initiative aims to make residential solar installations more accessible through flexible financing options, allowing households to install systems without traditional bank collateral. For communities looking to lower power bills and accelerate clean energy adoption, the program represents a potentially scalable approach. Politics at home produced moments that were both comic and consequential. A House lawmaker in the Philippines set off a wave of social media memes after misattributing famous movie lines during a debate over whether to unseal the tax records of the vice president and her husband. The disputed quote, "I demand an explanation," entered the chamber amid heated exchanges. Another lawmaker corrected the record and insisted that the committee treat impeachment proceedings with seriousness and ensure that any action complied with the law. "I deserve an explanation." I deserve an acceptable reason, he said, arguing that the committee must have a lawful, acceptable reason before opening sensitive records. The exchange was a reminder that moments of popular culture and procedural rigor can collide in unexpected ways during high-stakes political debates. Taken together, these threads, tactical naval rehearsals in contested waters, strategic realignments in global energy markets, diplomatic dances between long-standing allies, high-profile legal drama, corporate earnings, and local politics offer a snapshot of a moment in which defense, diplomacy, economics, and culture converge. Exercises at sea are not only about ordnance and sensors, they are also about signaling and deterrence. The presence of watching warships and aircraft reminds us that even well-executed drills will be monitored, interpreted, and sometimes contested by other powers. For policymakers and military planners, the lessons are practical, frequent, realistic joint exercises build trust, test logistics, and expose procedural gaps long before they matter in crisis. For diplomats and analysts, the U.S. move on OPEC will require recalibration of alliances and forecasts with implications for energy markets and strategic partnerships. For investors and business leaders, the mix of steady corporate results and currency volatility complicates short-term planning while pointing to areas of resilience. And for citizens, the theatricality and high stakes of public life, whether in courtrooms, on the water, or in the halls of Congress, remain a reminder that institutions and civic norms are being tested as surely as ships and systems. In the West Philippine Sea, the hard work is unglamorous. Drills repeated until muscle memory takes hold, radio calls exchanged and logged, sailors practicing the precise steps of damage control and casualty evacuation. Beyond the immediate tactical benefit of those repetitions, there is a larger strategic message. When allies and partners practice together, they increase the chance that should a crisis come, response will be coordinated, proportionate, and effective. That is the through line across these stories, the connective tissue between small seeming actions and large-scale consequence. As ships return to routine patrols and headquarters sifted through after-action reports, commanders emphasized that training and cooperation would continue. More maritime and joint exercises are planned as part of the larger Balakatan series, an indication that partnered forces intend to keep sharpening interoperability in the region. Diplomats and analysts will watch whether shifts among oil producers reshape OPEC's cohesion, while legal and political watchers at home follow high-profile cases and their implications for institutions. On the ground and at sea, in courtrooms and in parliaments, the week's events show a world in motion. Local actions and global currents interweave, and the choices of leaders and institutions reverberate in markets, alliances, and public life. What unites them is the need for clarity, for calm resolve, and for institutions that can manage conflict without becoming conflict themselves. The exercises at sea remind us that preparation, partnership, and the persistent, sometimes messy work of preserving stability are not glamorous, but they are essential. They are the quiet scaffolding of peace, the rehearsals that, when they work, help ensure that if trouble comes, response will be deliberate, lawful, and effective. For now, forces will return to their home ports to inspect gear, debrief crews, and plan the next cycle of training. Diplomats will return to the longer game of negotiation and alliance management. Markets will watch central bank signals and corporate earning calls, and families considering rooftop solar may find new financing options at hand. Across these spheres, the lesson is the same. In an era of close observation and rapid signal exchange, the small details of readiness, a refueling at sea, a practice radio call, a carefully worded diplomatic statement matter more than ever.